I hope I can get through this without getting cotton mouth because it's a lot going on. It's a lot going on. It's a lot of he say, she say. I believe a little bit of everything. Do I believe Meredith was acting a fool on that plane? Yes. And the reason why is because of Mary. We'll get to it. Do I believe Lisa is being added into this? Yes. Do I feel like Heather's putting 20 on 10 when it comes to Lisa? Yes. We all know how she gets down and how she's been doing all season. But yeah, if you're new here, hit subscribe. Do that real quick. Real quick, it's free of charge. Do it right now. I'm going to need y'all's energy because I'm going to need the energy to get through this because I got a whole bunch of no's. Too much. I don't know how I'm going to get through it, but we'll see. Thumbs up the video. Do that real quick too. It's free of charge. Get in the comments. Hype the video. Y'all know the drill. And we about to get into this. I'm about to do this now because I know I got the challenge to do. It's 8:22. I'm going to be up all night. But yeah, let's go. And even though I do say that about Meredith, I find it weird how we'll get to it. We'll get to it. But before we got to that part, we're still on the boat. Everybody is getting ready and getting up for the day. It's the last day. Captain Jason has the ladies running through yoga and whatnot. Heather's sitting over there looking thirsty and desperate, just like completely thirsting over Jason. Worse than Brittany is. Like, that's how you know she looks crazy. But Meredith, she's in the bed with Lisa talking about how disgusting she thinks Brittany is and how Brittany thinks that she's some Disney princess and has the brain aptitude of one as well. That was funny. But Meredith talks about how Whitney didn't shut down the TikTok stuff, like how she was sitting there entertaining it and that's not her friend. I said, I'm glad you know it because that's not your friend. But Brittany is telling them on the dock that she's tired of the pylon when it comes to her. And Heather's pretty much telling her like she needs to be prepared because she was telling Meredith about her husband basically quote unquote cheating on TikTok. And Whitney is telling them like, chill out. Like we are trying to have yoga. Like you're ruining my zen. Exactly. Like why can't you just do yoga? You shouldn't even be talking at this point. But they finish yoga. Bronwyn goes into Meredith's room with Brittany's toy that she got from Jared. This is that shit I'm talking about. Like Bronwyn be doing stuff. And let's call a spade a spade. All of what happened from the time, all of what happened later on was started because of who? Bronwyn. Bronwyn was the one that took that information, that conversation that she and Brittany had in that shop, brought it to them, which is what then got Meredith and Brittany at each other's throats, which has now led to what is now. Bronwyn started it all. Like, let's keep it real. But of course, who's getting the blame for it? Lisa. But we'll get to it. But she ends up asking if Meredith's okay. And she basically says, I'm not worried about Brittany. I'm not worried about somebody with a pea-sized brain. But Bronwyn then says that she told Brittany not to start stuff. Yet you the one that started it. You started it. But then proceeds to tell Meredith how Brittany had told Bronwyn that Meredith goes from 0 to 100. So you're still putting it on to Meredith to continue to get her mad at Brittany. But Bronwyn then says that Brittany put herself in this situation and in that position. And Meredith is like, I mean, I can take that hate, or she can take that hate, talking about Brittany. She can take that hate and shove it up her you know what. But Bronwyn and Meredith, they agree to throw that unicorn overboard and they get in costume and do it. So we finally get all the ladies together. They're together for breakfast for the last time on the boat. Brittany comes and sits down next to Meredith, and it was awkward. It was very silent. But Whitney tries to break the ice by asking Meredith how her toe is, and she's like, it's still fucked up at this point. Like, she's going to have to go to the doctor when she gets back home. And she's like, I'm a survivor. I'm strong, and I can deal with a lot of hatred. And she looks over at Brittany, who is sitting right next to her. And Brittany rolls her eyes and says, I mean, I have a hard time with hatred. And Meredith says, I mean, you're filled with it. Brittany says, who thinks that I'm filled with hatred? Meredith says, I mean, we're not going there, Whitney. And she calls Brittany Whitney. she did that unintentionally. But you know why she was doing it, because she was thinking about Whitney as she basically is getting ready to state, I'm done with you. My bigger issue is with Whitney. So Whitney's like, so what did I do? And Meredith is like, I mean, this pea brain behind me talking about Brittany. I barely know her. So Brittany's like, I mean, I literally say two things. I literally say one thing that I saw and you call me that. So Whitney then asked Meredith if she's mad that Whitney was talking about the TikTok. And Meredith is like, I mean, it's at that point where we literally spent the last few days as a group agreeing that essentially you led that campaign sussing out the fact that my husband, quote unquote, is cheating. So Brittany's like, don't throw her under the bus. Just be mad at me. Meredith says, I'm not talking to you. She's like, this chick over here don't exist. Clearly she does, though. But Meredith says that Whitney had co-signed it, didn't tell her, and that's not what a friend does. That is not what a friend does. But Brittany then states she didn't co-sign it, talking about Whitney. So Meredith starts flinging one side of her hair over there with Brittany behind her. And Brittany made a face that had beyond But Meredith takes the other side and flips it too. So Whitney then says, I mean, I told Brittany that she has three choices, either to not say it or bring it to Meredith or I'm going to do it. Basically stating like it's not true. That's why I feel like you shouldn't be talking about it to begin with. So Whitney then says that she essentially wanted to give Brittany the choice and the chance to do the right thing, which, I mean, why did you expect her to do the right thing, especially considering how she is with her own child? But Brittany then states that it's the double standard. Everybody else can talk about things and talk about other people's marriages and husbands and stuff. And when I say it out of kindness, I said, you was not saying that out of kindness. But Meredith is like, oh, please. But they start going back and forth. And Brittany starts imitating Meredith, flinging her hair, and she gets too close. She gets a little too close to Meredith, and Meredith, in her fashion, if you touch me, and then Brittany starts pointing her finger back at them. I was like, please. But Meredith and Whitney, they end up switching places because they just going back and forth. And they continue to go back and forth, even with Meredith on the other side. But Bronwyn is being fake, trying to act like she's trying to kind of calm Brittany down or whatever. And I'm like, you're literally the reason as to why they're arguing right now. Like, let's keep it real. But Meredith then states she's done with Brittany. And if y'all want to support her, I'll be done with y'all too. Heather sitting next to her. Are you fucking kidding me? Heather says, not Heather. Meredith says, no, I'm not. I'm dead serious. And Heather gets in her confessionals talking about something for Meredith to be okay with Lisa. Here we go. What does Lisa have to do with this? It's always something about Lisa when it comes to Heather. And this is why I'm telling y'all. People probably gonna say I'm biased because I see Lisa's side. I do like Lisa though. That's the whole thing. Like I do like Lisa, but I can see when she's wrong. But in this instant, it's clear. Like the whole season, you can see Heather has an agenda when it comes to Lisa. Is Lisa innocent? No. And when I say innocent, like just throughout her time on the show, has she always been innocent? No. But in this moment, I feel like she's just adding on to Lisa to fit the agenda that she wants for the season, which is a takedown on Lisa. So she's sitting there talking about, like, if you can move on from Lisa digging up dirt on your family, apply that same energy to the conflict that you have with Brittany. Why? Meredith don't care about Brittany. That's the difference. Meredith actually has a long friendship, a long existing friendship with Lisa to where that would be something that she might want to salvage. Brittany, she just met her last year, at least from what I understand. She don't care about Brittany, so why the fuck would she care to put that much energy into getting to resolve that situation? Because Brittany is just literally there at that point to her. So Angie says, I mean, I'm not supporting what Brittany did, but what I need to remind everybody is that we can't support gout dick. So basically she's talking about Lisa too. I'm like, if y'all don't get, what does Lisa have to do with this? But Meredith then says, break the cycle. And Brittany says, or she's pretty much states that Brittany had led by the example. I'm done with her. Meredith is done with her. So Bronwyn then asked Mary to say something as a mother and a woman of God. And Mary's in her confessionals like, God could come down here and slap them right now. They're not going to listen to him. So why am I say something? Like, literally. But they wrap it up finally. So they go get packed to leave. The boat ends up docking. And Bronwyn, she's flying home solo. As we all know, she came later. And she had to rebook a flight. So everybody gets off the boat. They're hugging the staff and whatnot, thanking them for everything. Heather apologizes to them about them fighting and whatnot. But Daisy, one of the workers, says, oh, shit, I forgot something. She goes over there and she comes back out with the unicorn that was thrown overboard. So I guess they went out there and fished it. But Brittany is talking about, oh, my God, I was looking for this. It's wet. Who threw this over? So she's sitting around asking everybody, who threw this in the water? So Bronwyn and Meredith are sitting there. Really, Bronwyn's the one sitting there looking like, I'm like, why don't you cop to it, Bronwyn? Why don't you cop to it? But Bronwyn then cops out finally and says, it was a joke. I did it as a joke. No, tell her why you really did it. But Meredith says, I mean, I was with Bronwyn. Like, Uni, talking about the unicorn, wanted to swim. I mean, you got Tanner and makeup on him. He just needed to dip in the ocean. But Bronwyn then says it was supposed to make you laugh. Now, you know good and damn well that was not going to make her laugh. A little unicorn that has Jared pretty much telling her sweet nothings. You think she's going to be upset with you? You think she's going to be okay and laughing about you throwing that overboard, knowing who Brittany is? Please. But Whitney then says, why would that make her laugh? Exactly. Like, why? But Brittany's in her confessionals talking about how it's sentimental to her because Jared made a personal message to her. I said, Brittany, please. Please. But Meredith says, like, it was Bronwyn's idea, which it was. And Brittany then walks off dramatically as she does. Let me take a little drink break. So here's where we get this plane shit, which I found convenient how they're flying back. We all know production is flying with them. They have cameras. And even if they don't want to pull up them big cameras, they all have these. Why was none of this caught on camera, especially considering how long it was? But Heather and Angie, they're retelling the story how Meredith was out of her mind at the airport, screaming, yelling because Brittany had talked about her marriage. So Angie says like she was making a scene in the airport. Brittany says like I was last to get on the plane, and my seat just happened to be in front of Lisa and Meredith. So Heather claims that Meredith was unhinged the whole time. Mary says that Meredith was pretty much just reliving everything that Brittany had said and spiraled for hours. And Heather was like, I mean, she was talking loud about Brittany so the whole first class could hear it. Brittany says somebody had grabbed her seat. I was about to say sheet, shook her and shook the seat. Wine was flying everywhere. Hair was pulling. And I'm like, you can't tell me that this type of shit is going on in first class and nobody, when I say nobody, I'm talking about passengers, flight attendants. You mean to tell me they just gonna sit here and let this shit happen? That's where I'm like, I don't really know that all of what they're claiming, like hair pulling and stuff, no. Can I see Meredith spazzing out and going crazy? Yes, I can see that. But do I see hair pulling being allowed on a flight? No. So Whitney then says people were asking for phones to see the TikTok and whatnot. Brittany says she could hear Meredith through her headphones, and Meredith is sitting there denying it all. But Meredith says that she had talked to Lisa about everything that they were claiming that she was doing. And Angie says they landed and Brittany was crying in a puddle of tears. And Meredith says, obviously, it was nothing that deep because I did not get arrested. That's valid. And I'm like, where were the cameras at? Because at that point, if she was literally doing all that, being belligerent, she would have been arrested. Like, but 2 days later, they're back home in Utah. And we see Meredith and Bronwyn out to lunch. And Mary's telling her everything that happened because Bronwyn was not on the flight. So Meredith is like, I mean, from the time that we boarded, Meredith was going in on Brittany. And she then says too, like, right is right, wrong is wrong, which this is why I'm telling you, like, we all know how Mary feels about Brittany. She don't like her. She probably don't like her more than anybody in the group. So for her to be pretty much taken up for her, essentially, it makes me look like, okay, something must have happened. But Whitney, she's telling Justin, and she's talking about Lisa was egging it on. So Lisa's in the car telling John while she's eating at Wendy's that look good. Y'all, I'm cutting, so I only eat ground chicken and rice at this moment in time. So my mouth was watering. But Lisa says Meredith didn't say anything to Brittany. She was just venting to Lisa about Brittany very loudly. And as we know, they were seated right behind her. So John was like, I mean, so you weren't saying anything to Brittany? Lisa's like, of course not. Of course not. She was like, I never saw Meredith that upset before in my life. And she then states too that the whole thing was just crazy. So we then see Heather. She is at the Grand Hyatt meeting with Brittany. So Brittany arrives, they hug, they order their drinks and their food. And Brittany is like, I mean, I've hardly slept or eaten since obviously getting off the plane. So Heather then states, like, I mean, there's no consequences to justify how you were treated. So Brittany's like, I mean, I feel like I've been hit by a bus. And I'm like, so what really happened? And I'm like, I can't, it's like, it's hard to believe certain things that Brittany says, and it's damn sure hard to believe shit that comes out of Heather's mouth. But Heather says that there's a crazy vortex of bullying when Meredith and Lisa are together and they feed off of each other. I said, please. To me, it just sounds like she's jealous that Meredith and Lisa are super close. And she wants to wedge herself between that. She wants to wedge herself between that, get Meredith away from Lisa, because we all know she was trying, that attempt that she made on that boat to get Meredith against Lisa. It didn't work. So now she's trying another angle, which is, I mean, if y'all want to sit there and be hoodwinked by Heather, go ahead. I see through Heather. Heather is phony. She's the biggest bully on the show if you want to keep it real. But Heather claims that she fell asleep. Remember this. She fell asleep. Brittany says, yeah, I almost woke you up. But Brittany says it got out of control. 4 hours, they were in there. There was hair pulling. And Heather ends up asking what happened when Meredith got up to go to the bathroom. So again, you weren't present. Well, you were present, but you weren't awake to see what was going on. So Brittany says, I mean, she shook my seat. Heather says that she started talking about when she woke up because she thought that Brittany was laughing when her seat was shaking. And she saw Lisa repeating, you fucked up, give us the video. And Heather then says that that's when she said, leave Brittany alone, basically talking to to Lisa and Meredith. And she claims that they came at her. She's always the victim. Heather is always the victim. But Brittany then states that the flight attendant came in, kept checking on her and whatnot. And she was like, I need water. Brittany then states she couldn't believe that Lisa would turn on her like that because she's been there for her and whatnot. Brittany says Lisa essentially was egging it on and a part of the kicking of her seat. And Heather was working her bullshit, pretty much trying to claim like she's 100% on Brittany's side. And essentially she's trying to drag Lisa down. And she drags Meredith down with her. All right, so we now move to the scene with Bronwyn and Whitney. They're out to lunch. And Whitney's pretty much filling her in on the flight fight. And Bronwyn's like, yeah, Mary told me a little bit about it, but that's the only person that I've seen, so what really happened? And Whitney's like, I want to hear what she told you. Like, let me hear what she said. So Bronwyn tells her, and she's like, I mean, Meredith, she pretty much said that Meredith freaked out and went off on Brittany for hours. And Mary says that Meredith was essentially trying to get her to be mad at Brittany too. Whitney is co-signing all of that. She was like, yeah, Brittany was in a puddle of tears. She was sobbing, hyperventilating. And Bronwyn's like, of course she was. Of course she was. Bronwyn, you started all of this. Like, let's keep it real. Everything that happened is because of Bronwyn. I will not let y'all forget that. She's the one that opened her mouth and told what Brittany was talking to her about in confidence that was not aired on the TV, even though they had the cameras. She brought the shit to Meredith, and that's what set Meredith off. Like, let's keep it real. But, yeah, Whitney then says that Lisa was yelling at her, too, telling her that she fucked up. So Whitney was like, I mean, she didn't know if it was pills or drugs at this point or alcohol. That's basically what she's claiming Meredith and maybe Lisa was on, but it was rage. But Bronwyn, she's in her confessional stating that she don't know if they're exaggerating because there's no way it would happen on a commercial flight with no footage. I said, exactly. Exactly. There's no way this shit could go on for 4 hours and nobody pull out their phone and there's no footage. You cannot tell me that. And there's no way that Meredith could be this belligerent on a flight for 4 hours, get off that flight and not be arrested. That's why it's hard to believe all of this. Whitney's dumbstruck considering everything. Well, actually, I just skipped over it. Bronwyn then moves the conversation to her and Ty. She says, well, apparently Ty and Meredith need a reminder of flight etiquette. Whitney's like, what the fuck are you talking about? Bronwyn says, I mean, I don't know if you've seen it, but there's people on Twitter accusing Tide of cheating on her on a plane. I said, oh, so the rumors are true. You was doing all that on that boat, but Bronwyn says that she landed in Salt Lake City. He was on a flight, Tide going back to New York, and somebody had caught him looking at women on his phone. And then the screenshots pretty much stated that they were wearing lingerie. So Whitney ends up asking Bronwyn if she believes him. And she said, yeah, I do, because they knew what seat he was in, what flight they were behind him and everything. So she said when he came home, she confronted him about it. And he's like, well, then ask your friends because they like to gossip and whatnot. I feel like they probably were behind it. She was like, no. So Bronwyn says in her confessionals that she was so furious. He had a business trip the next day. And she pretty much told him, you need to go get a hotel so we can get some space. So Bronwyn then says that if somebody had sent him them photos and they talked about it before, it wouldn't bother her. Whitney's face was mine. But then again, I'm like hearing how she got him to marry her with no prenup. And that man's worth like $20+ million. I guess it wouldn't mind her. At that point, and then looking at him, knowing you can't tell me she's sleeping with him. You can't tell me. So at that point, I can see why it wouldn't bother her because, I mean, if she want to divorce him, she probably going to be able to get some good money. But Bronwyn, she says that she feels like she could say that to Whitney out of all the girls because they're closer in age. They're most out of the Mormonism. And if he said that he wanted to have an open marriage, essentially, she would try it out. I said, yeah, because you not sleeping with him. You cannot convince me of that. You can't. But Whitney, and it's like at that point, it's like Bronwyn, her being open to that, she'd still be in the marriage. She'd still be able to benefit from his money. And then she can go sleep with whoever she want to sleep with if she wants to do that. But Whitney is looking like, but Bronwyn then says that she doesn't want to be done with him because, come on. But she says like she wants him to evolve with her. And Whitney's like, does he understand that? And she's like, no. But Whitney ends up asking, so what's the agreement? And Bronwyn's like, I mean, that's the problem. We don't have one. Bronwyn then says that she would rather, when Lisa says something like Ty's out here making out with other girls, I wish I could be like, yeah, I'm the one that picked that girl out for him. I'm like, but Whitney, this is where they move into this conversation where it's clear they very similar. Whitney's looking like, to me, I thought she looked like she had secondhand embarrassment, but Whitney then opens up the conversation like, I mean, I understand this 100% because me and Justin went through this shit. Like, we have an age difference too. We talked about this type of shit a lot. And she's like, we've been married for 15 years. There's been times where we've been on the outs and I thought I was done. and started thinking about what's out here. Like, if I want to go entertain other people. And Braun was like, yeah, good for you. Good for you. I'm like, but Whitney then says that he was doing the same thing, talking about Justin. But she's like, I don't want to create a rumor that we are having an open marriage or whatever. But like, it's at that point now where we have an agreement. And Braun was like, I mean, I know I would never tell anybody that y'all would. And I'm like, is that strategic for them to put this in here? Is she going to do something later on? But we'll see. But Whitney then states like, I mean, if we've had thoughts, essentially all we have to do is talk it out. And as long as we have an agreement and we can communicate that, it is what it is. And I guess that is true in certain marriages. That's not a marriage that I want. But I guess in certain marriages, if there's an understanding, I guess it matters and I guess it works. So, I mean, it is what it is. But Whitney pretty much states like the best thing you can do at that point is speak your mind, because that's what I did. And we just have an agreement to communicate. So they seem to be on the same page with that. We get a scene at home with Angie and Electra talking about Greece and whatnot, and Electra not really being a fan of the Greek culture or whatever. Don't really care. Honestly, considering everything else that was going on, this was a filler scene. So we're going to feel right on past it. But we then move to Heather and Lisa. Heather gets on my nerves, and she pisses me off this whole scene. Lisa cracks me up because she made her wait an hour and a half, as she should. As she should. But it was weird energy from Heather from the jump. Lisa ends up asking how it's going because it was a lot. And Heather says, I mean, it was a lie. It was a rough re-entry. Lisa says, I mean, Meredith was upset. I wanted to soothe her out and it didn't work, but it was a lie. And the face that Lisa made, I was cracking up laughing because Lisa's looking like, I'm not taking any of this serious right now. But Heather then says, I mean, I want to talk about the whole thing from the beginning to the end because you weren't there for a lot of it because you were asleep half the time. But she was like, because Brittany doesn't want to be around you or Meredith. And Lisa's like, me? Like, why did we, like, I didn't do anything to her. Why would she not want to be around me? All I said was just send her the fucking TikTok. So Heather was like, I mean, you kept saying she fucked up. She fucked up. And Lisa says, I mean, it started when we got to the airport. I said, please send her the TikTok because Meredith was over here freaking out about it. So Heather then says, but you were ganging up on Brittany. Here she go. Always trying to lump Lisa into some shit. It sounds like Meredith was the main one doing it. The only people that are really like co-signing Lisa doing this shit is Heather and fucking Whitney. Brittany to a certain extent, but she ain't really, all of what's being stated, Heather is putting 20 on 10, but we'll get to it. We definitely about to get to it. So yeah, Heather was like, you were ganging up on Brittany. It's like, Lisa's like, no, I wasn't. I was not ganging up on her. I didn't say one thing to her, which you did, but we'll get to it. But Heather then says, it felt like we were trapped in a plane and you guys wouldn't stop. I said, how do you feel like you was trapped in a plane when apparently you were asleep the whole time until the very end? So you weren't trapped. The only ones that felt trapped were Whitney, Brittany, Mary. I was going to say Angie, but we really ain't heard too much from Angie. But Heather then says that she said that you were egging her on, talking about Brittany, talking about Lisa. And Lisa's like, I mean, she didn't say that. Like, she didn't say that. And Lisa's in her confessional stating that Heather is trying to lump her into all of this. Like, who the fuck do you think you are? I said, exactly. But Lisa then says Meredith wasn't even talking to her. Like, Meredith was not even talking to Brittany. She was yelling at me about Brittany. And she was like, so I leaned over because she was talking about the TikTok. So I leaned over in my chair because Brittany was in front of me. And I asked her, like, where's the TikTok? And asked, like, can you show her the TikTok? Because she's freaking out about it. And she was like, I mean, if y'all had a problem with it, somebody should have stepped in and said something. Exactly. But Heather says, I did. I was sound asleep until the very end. I was like, so how do you feel trapped on a plane when you was barely awake for everything that happened? Because, like, if it's really as bad as she's making it out to be, you gonna wake up. Like, on a plane, you gonna wake up. You're not gonna be in that deep of a sleep. I'm a heavy sleeper. If some rowdy ass shit is going on, I'm gonna wake up. I'm gonna wake up. So you can't sit here and tell me that you sat there the whole time when all this shit was going on. And when we saw the seating placements, Heather was right there next to Lisa. Like, Lisa and Meredith were here. She was on the opposite side of Lisa in the middle of the aisle. So if you heard all of that shit going on, you would have woke up. But she says that Heather says when she woke up, Lisa and Meredith were yelling at her. And Lisa's like, I didn't once yell at you. I did nothing to Brittany. So Heather then says, well, then why did 4 women have to physically help her off the plane, get her redressed, get her through customs and whatnot? I said, no aircraft is going to let all of that shit happen. Like, if she was getting her hair pulled and stuff, there's no way that's going to happen. And y'all are in first class. Like, there's no way. And you mean to tell me the rest of them back there was not recording? Please. But Lisa says that I was preserving my energy, and I don't know why that's so complicated for everybody to understand. Heather says, I mean, I don't know why somebody would be should be punished because they don't do what you want. I said, yet you sitting here doing this to Lisa. You did the shit to Monica. Like, you try to control people, and when they don't control you, when they don't allow you to control them, you start doing what you're doing now, which is to spearhead a smear campaign against these people. But Lisa's like, I don't know why you're sitting here punishing me. I'm not punishing you. Heather claims that she's talking to Lisa as a friend, and Lisa's like, I'm talking to you as a friend. And Heather's like, I don't feel like you are. I said, shut up. But Lisa then says, I mean, if Brittany is upset, I feel horrible that she's upset, but can she take some accountability too? I said, for real though, because at the end of the day, Bronwyn started it, but Brittany was talking about talking about Meredith's marriage. Whether it's true or not, she was talking about it. So obviously when you're talking about rumors about somebody's marriage, you don't think that she's going to be upset about it. And it's like, if you didn't start talking about all this shit, it would have never really been brought up to begin with. And then not only that, you wouldn't be in this predicament right now. Like, it's crazy. Heather then states, it's feeling like you're saying that she deserved it. Like, she was sitting here sobbing. She felt bullied by you guys. She never said that she felt bullied. You're the one that said that. You're putting words in her mouth. Like, that's what's happening. But Lisa then says, don't put me in that statement. Heather then states that I'm telling you how she felt. No, you're telling her what you want. That's what you want Brittany to feel. Like, that whole conversation, you were literally trying to tell her what to feel. But she was like, why did she feel like her chair was being jostled? I don't know what she meant by that. But Lisa states, like, when Meredith was trying to get up to go to the bathroom, she grabbed her chair to help herself up. I've done that plenty of times on the plane. But Heather says, what about the wine spill? Lisa says she was literally talking to me and had wine in one hand and it spilled all over me. So Heather was like, I mean, it got on Brittany. Lisa's like, no, it didn't. So Heather then states, I was on the fucking plane. Why are you trying to tell me something different? Lisa says, you were sleeping. I was like, exactly. You the one that said that you were sleeping? So Heather's like, not at the end when you were yelling at me. Lisa again states, I was not yelling at you. You were sitting there trying to tell me to control Meredith. I have zero control over her. Like, you were 3 feet away from her. If anybody could control her, you do it. So Heather was like, I mean, I did the second I woke up, and she screamed and yelled at me. So Lisa was like, I mean, you didn't. Nobody was trying to restrain her but me. So Heather then states, I mean, I got in a huge fight with her. And Lisa was like, yeah, after you got off the plane. Lisa says, I mean, I don't agree with what she said, and I'm not going to be held responsible for it. Right. If she didn't do it, don't hold her responsible for it. But Heather's in her confessionals trying to place blame on Lisa per usual. And Lisa then states that Brittany needs to take some accountability. So Heather then states, too, that Brittany is the victim in the situation. Lisa is getting irritated. She's like, don't put this shit on me. Y'all are some fucking bitches constantly putting this shit on me. And Heather is gaslighting her again, talking about how I'm trying to have an honest conversation. And Lisa clocks her. This is not an honest conversation. This is an accusatory conversation. You're trying to accuse me of shit instead of sitting here actually having an honest conversation. If you were having an honest conversation, you would ask questions about shit that you were not awake to see. You're sitting here putting words into Brittany's mouth to fit a narrative that you want to apply to Lisa. Like, the issue at hand is Meredith, yet all Heather's energy is towards Lisa. Like, it's crazy. But Heather then states that you're on the defense. Why would she not be? Because you've been on her head all season. And Lisa's like, I mean, there's times where you've hurt Brittany yourself, and I've tried to be a good friend to Brittany. Lisa then states that I draw the line when it comes to Meredith and her marriage, which I found funny because we all know the infamous scene. I talked about it last week with Lisa talking about her marriage. But Brittany took no accountability. She was like, Brittany took no accountability trying to hurt Meredith and her family. So Lisa then states, I'm done with this conversation. Heather says, then leave then, since I'm a bitch. Lisa says, only a fucking bitch would do this shit to me. She was like, I'm just sitting here drinking my juice and you sitting here trying to put it all on me. But Heather is swearing up and down that Lisa was a part of this and is trying to change everybody's reality. Y'all, I'm tired. I'm tired of getting cotton mouth. But Meredith and Mary, they are the final scene. They're meeting up and Mary is asking her how you're doing. Like, how are you doing? Meredith is like, I'm good. You can tell Mary low-key look like she kind of shook when it comes to Meredith. It's like she kind of like, I'm scared to be around you right now. But Mary was like, I mean, last time I saw you, you were not in a good place. And I know how you go off when you're angry, but this was different. which is where I was like, okay, I feel like Meredith, I feel like I believe Mary more so than anybody. Yeah, I believe Mary more so than anybody. Meredith ends up asking Mary what she thinks happened. And Mary's like, I mean, I don't think anything happened. I know what happened because I was there. Meredith says, I mean, the reality is I was upset. I vented to a friend. Brittany had headphones on and I don't think she could hear me. I didn't think that she could hear me. Mary says, I mean, I think that you wanted her to hear, which aligns with everybody stating that she was yelling. And Meredith was like, I mean, the things that I said to Lisa were things that I've said to Brittany. Things that I chose not to say, I haven't said to her, and I made that choice not to. So Mary was like, I mean, it went on for a minute. Meredith says, I mean, 15. Mary says, no, I was concerned, and I'm a little bit concerned because it went on a lot longer than you claim to remember. So Meredith was like, I slept, I watched 2 movies, and I slept over an hour. So it couldn't have been that long. So they go back and forth, and Mary's in her confessionals like, I don't understand why Meredith is sitting here trying to come up with a different story than what we all witnessed. So Mary is sitting there looking at Meredith. Like I said, she's looking at her like she done seen a ghost. Like, who the fuck are you? So Meredith says Mary was asleep half the flight. So I don't know how she's sitting here remembering all this. But Mary then says, every time I woke up, I heard you. So Meredith says, I mean, that's impossible because you were across the plane. This is when they showed the seating arrangement. Lisa and Meredith were on this side. Mary was in the seat with, I want to say, Whitney. Yeah. And Whitney was on the aisle seat. Mary was in the window. And it was like diagonal from where Lisa and Meredith was. Lisa was on the aisle. Meredith was in that window. So they're like diagonal from each other. So Meredith was like, Mary was like, I still heard you. Meredith continues to deny it, and she's getting defensive at this point. And Mary's maintaining her position, and she's like, I mean, it concerns me because I want you to remember, and I feel like you don't. Meredith is stating that she does remember, and Mary's like, I mean, I feel like it's important to take accountability and move forward. Meredith is still maintaining her positioning. Like, she's not changing her story. Meredith says, I mean, Mary couldn't see her, pretty much stating, like, the only way she could see me is if she stood up and turned around, and even if she had headphones on, which she did, she really couldn't hear me unless I walked past her. So Meredith then feels like Whitney had gotten to Mary, and Mary believed what Whitney was stating. And Mary's like, I mean, I feel like Meredith should apologize to Brittany. And Mary's like, I mean, at this point, you'll never grow if you don't take accountability, which is true. But Meredith states that she will have to think about it essentially, and we'll see what happens next week. That was a lot of talking, and I'm tired. I thugged it through. If y'all love me, give me this. It was not the most cohesive recap, but get in the comments. Let me know y'all's thoughts. I'm pretty sure it's going to be split. It is what it is. Subscribe if you're new. Share the video. Hype the video. And I'll see y'all next week. Peace.